When I arrived at Yale in the fall of 1974 for postgraduate studies, I got off to a rather slow start thanks to my own intimidation and little uncertainty about my thesis plans. Once I began to notice the frequency of the owl motif in the college Gothic architecture of the university and its various colleges, each one a campus within the larger campus, I began collecting them. At first this was chiefly a displacement activity, giving a little structure to counterbalance or distract me from my lack of confidence in being there. It wasn't long before the intimidation faded and my dissertation research gelled, so the reason for the displacement activity was gone. But by then I was so much enjoying the hunt that I continued owl spotting for the whole 3 years. By the time I marched in Yale's 275th graduation exercise, I had tallied around 75 species of owls among its hallowed halls and graven walls, such as the great copper owl weather vane atop Sterling Library, the roundels of owlish gargoyles encircling the law school's crocketed towers, and various carved owlets on door panels, reredos, and moldings. In the absence of actual owls, they served well as a distraction from the heavy academic work. Many years later, during a joint reading at Redlands College in Southern California, my fellow writers and I looked up from our text repeatedly to watch both barn and great horned owls cruising past the open doors. Had Yale been like that, perhaps I never would have finished my studies. The elegant blend of art and natural history represented by this indulgent pursuit remains for me nearly as memorable as Professor Charles Remington's inspired lectures on evolution, watching Meryl Streep's student performances in several drama school productions, and that first real-life Snowy out on the frigid shore of Long Island Sound. In the 40 years since, how very many owls have graced my days and nights. Downy baby-grayed horns and barns in the basalt rimrock of eastern Washington, banshee-voiced tawnies in the Somerset countryside, a bouncing, big-eyed, burrowing owl peeking over a road crest at dawn where I'd been sleeping on the opposite verge during a very slow hitchhike across the western United States. Short-eareds cruising the Skagit Flats in company with northern harriers and red-tailed hawks and tens of thousands of snow geese. Particular pygmies and screeches in particular tree holes, faithfully present year after year. The barred owl of British Columbia, whose shrill "Who cooks for y'all?" convinced a credulous young enthusiast that he had finally recorded Bigfoot. The still life of a great horned owl hunched in the crotch of a willow in a Wyoming winter landscape that I mistook for a bobcat, and the one that cleaned out our hollow tree of its flying squirrels, one broad gray tail on the lawn every morning until they were gone, and then moved on. The barn owl that stooped at my cat, and the one I helped restore to its parents and siblings inside the gable of a very high barn after rehab. The long-eareds, like small totems, lining the limbs of pines in a thick windbreak in the Columbia Basin, watched with Roger Torrey Peterson on a bird convention field trip in 1971. Another ornithological luminary along on that outing was Tony Angell. I had met Tony in Seattle in the 1960s, one of a number of keen and talented naturalists who made the city so exciting and inspiring for a college kid like me. Our friendship went from there and will soon span half a century. A few years into it, when I worked for the Nature Conservancy, Tony was chairman of the Washington chapter. By this time, it was already apparent that he was one of the premier sculptors, pen and ink artists, and writers anywhere working with birds and mammals. Tony's love of corvids and of owls and other raptors led to a long series of marvelous books. Maybe it was inevitable that he would one day write a book in which he laid out his lifelong passion for owls and what they have taught him. When I learned that such a book was on its way, I rejoiced. Here, I thought, will be the book to cap all the owl books I've loved before, and so it is. The House of Owls is simply a delight for a strigophile like me, but it will also delight any birder or naturalist and all those who care about the living world and its more remarkable manifestations. The heart of the book for me is the title chapter, The House of Owls, which relates the personal saga of a period when Tony and his family lived intimately with one dynasty of screech owls who shared their home habitat. The next chapter, About Owls, gives the basic facts to understand how owls work and how they fit into the broader context of life, and the third chapter describes how they have been accommodated in human culture. The remaining